on data science in retail. I, Nida Parkar, Head of Academics at Aegis School of Data Science, welcome each of the participants for this industry session. And today we have, for this session, we have a very renowned speaker, Ms. Aditi Sharma. And I welcome you on behalf of Aegis School of Data Science for taking out time and coming to this industry session. So let me quickly introduce Aditi before we start the session. Ms. Aditi is currently a director, applied science director at dunnhumby. She leads the international market. She also leads the international market team at dunnhumby, and she leads more than a large team of data scientists, wherein she handles the clients from Latin and North America. Under her leadership, at dunnhumby, she has provided enormous solutions for the retail industry using end-to-end solutions from collection of data to application of machine learning algorithms in the retail industry and providing the end-to-end solution to her clients. She has more than a decade of experience in this field, and you can say she is master. She has enormous experience in data science, especially when it comes to the retail industry. So today's session, she would be taking us through how is data science used. We all know that data science is used in multiple domains. Today specifically, she would be talking about how data science is used across the retail industry. She is also a people-centric leader, and she coaches, mentors, and inspires her team to try out new technologies and solutions across various different languages. You can say that she is very much experienced in delivering improvements and making the existing solutions work better to all her clients. So over to you, Aditi. That's all from my end.
Yeah, I'll also start sharing my screen. You can hear me all right?
Sure, definitely.
Let me know when my screen is visible. Can I get a heads up?
Your screen is visible, yes.
Cool. Yeah, hello everyone. Thank you for joining the session. Hope you take away something from this and find this helpful. I was not aware of the long introduction that I'll get, so I've still slided into some introduction about myself and the organization. I'll talk a little about the analytics that we see in action, what it means in simple terms. I'll introduce few concepts of retail and we'll understand retail customer a little. I'll touch about retail data, a bit on algorithms, and I'll give you a quick view of what real world application look like and some future insights from my side. Just talking about myself, I think I've already been introduced in length, but just quickly, I've done my master's in economics and close to 13 years of experience now in the analytics world. I started working in this stream right after my post-graduation. I worked across different retailers, mostly on North America when it comes to hands-on, and covered variety of domains: grocery, health, pet care, and pharma, and a bit on QSR. And currently I'm leading a team of 50+ members which is spread across globe, taking care of the clients spread across globe and solving the problems for them. Just a bit about organization. dunnhumby, being the global leader of customer data science and being pioneer in this stream, they understand the customer preference, and we all try to understand the shopping pattern that a customer follow, eventually using that to help the retailers and brands. So eventually it's the financial target that a retailer would want to meet, but it can't be done without customer engagement. And that's something is the principle that we follow in dunnhumby, of being customer centric and work closely with our clients to get that done. As you can see from the slide, I won't get into details of the clients, but they're spread across the globe, and we are dealing with about 800 million customers transaction, and using our specialized knowledge of machine learning and algorithms to help the clients. The propositions that we are offering, they are backed with algorithms which help us decouple the complexity of retail and big data. Big data is a term that's something that you been hearing and reading and understanding, but I'll just take a minute to give a quick interpretation of big data before we move further. And to talk about big data before, I'll just take you a little back and try to give you a quick glimpse of what happens in a minute, how intense is a minute. For a human, when we are trying to assess a minute, normally 12 to 16 breaths that we are taking. It's 50 to 70 beats that our heart is beating, the rate that our heart is beating on. And the blinks that we are looking at in a minute is 12. Now, that number is not, all these numbers in a minute are very small if we look at it in comparison to the digital world. When you see these numbers, this is for 2022. And if you just look at the top, the lowest number is 4,000 people looking at the Yelp review. That's the lowest number that we deal in the digital world in a minute of the day. And the highest is songs being played in US, that's close to 700 million. What I'm trying to get to is that we all are creating data every minute, be it exploring your favorite watch on Amazon, or you are just streaming something on YouTube or Netflix. You all are creating data at this point in time as well. And that is what is being simplified and understood using an analytics across the industries. And that's now I'll just talk about analytics and what exactly it means. So in lay terms, analytics is just something that's helping us take the right decision using the data or the information that we have. The first step to get to any answer is to frame that right question, which is defining the problem statement that we are looking at. Once we know what we exactly are trying to get to, is to gather data or munch the data once we have the information, transforming it to the level that we can actually start analyzing and investigating the information. That takes me to the third stage of this value chain, where we are examining the information that we have. This can be descriptive, this can be inferential, this can be predictive, depending on the question that we are looking at. This is the stage where you will be talking about machine learning algorithms, AI, all the aspects of statistics that will help us really interpret the information that we are dealing with. Next is not really a step, it's more of an overlap that happens with data analysis. It's looking at the data and generating insights, or looking at the analysis that we have done so far, hence being treated as the fourth one. This can be different graphs, charts, heat maps, geographical maps, to just understand what's really happening with the mess that we got in the beginning and connecting it to the problem statement. That connection happens with the storytelling, where you have all the insights and you try to make the dots connect and come up with the final recommendation that can be acted upon. That's the last step. As I said, it's about taking the right decision. So in a nutshell, it's all about getting to the best decision that we can, and the data science and analytics are the means to the end. It can be strategic, it can be tactical. It totally depends on the situation and the problem that we are trying to solve. So now that you understand what big data is and you understand how analytics helps us looking at it, let me get into the piece that I am most passionate about talking, retail. It is a complex entity. As you can see on slides, there's a lot of concepts for me to really talk about. I won't talk about them in details, but just to give you a quick flavor of what are we dealing with when we talk about retail analytics. There are several entities that are engaged. There are CPGs, you call them manufacturers, FMCG, suppliers, brands. At the end, it's the group of people, the group of organizations which are working and creating the packaged goods for the end consumer. Wholesalers are the ones who are acquiring those products and making the distribution happen. So they play a very important role when it comes to the distribution vertical of retail. Retailers are the ones who are actually making that product reach to the consumer, and consumer are people like you and me, depending on our need. Mode of operations, we all have seen the digital world swinging along. Brick and mortar are the physical stores, and e-commerce is the online how we are shopping. Domains can be spread across grocery, fashion, pharmacy, QSR are few for me to name. Similarly, on verticals, things that needs to be handled are store operation, merchandising, supply chain, and marketing. So you can see I've not really connected the dots, but it's all connected to each other and it's more of a web for us to demystify. For remaining of the session, my scope will be restricted to how retailers engage with consumers to understand them and really make the best use of the information that they can get. Now that I've spoken about consumer, let's just understand their shopping process as well. Every retail customer will be going through 4 phases when it comes to shopping. And let's start thinking through a shopping experience that you would just had. You'll first try to identify a need. It can be an unplanned one, it can be a planned one, where you would want to understand, you need to have an objective to go for that whole process. This is a place where you will plan what kind of place you want to go, whether it's a physical store or would you want to meet your need using an e-commerce platform. So doing all that planning, consideration, that's what discover stage refers to. Next comes the shop. This is where when you're actually in the whole process of picking the product, picking the good that you want. Speaking from physical store perspective, this is while you're roaming around the aisles, looking through the shelves, making the choice, which brand would you want to pick, which package you want to pick. Do you need to change the need that you started your shopping with? Do you want to add more things? So all that's happening in this whole shop phase. The next is buy. That's where you exactly checking out when you've made the final decision of your basket on what needs to be brought. This is where your payment aspects also comes in. The last bit is reflect. When you have made the purchase, going back and doing the assessment of the experience. Were you able to find what you were looking for? Did you get it in the right price? Were you able to make the checkout easily? So all that comes back in the reflect phase, which eventually then gets into discover when you are going for your next round of shopping. And that's true for whether grocery or fashion or any domain you would want to go to. So once we understand this through a customer lens, and now we know how a customer is looking at the whole shopping experience, even if that's happening unconsciously, there's a lot that can be done through data by any retailer. And let's just look at this whole journey through a retailer lens now. So what's happening at the discover stage? The customer is making a choice, making a decision that can be based on whether the variety that I need is available or not. Am I getting the right price, right discount? Is it convenient for me to really go to a store like Big Bazaar to do that purchase, or would I want to really just order it online or just go downstairs and buy from the closest store? So all these thought process is something, even if as a customers we are not really thinking, putting much of thoughts to it, it's coming automatically. And that's something that's retailers data is helping them to influence customers. So these are the 3 elements that retailers can look at when they're trying to influence the customers. The next is shop. As I said, this is the phrase where you are really in the process. So layout, if we are talking about physical store, it's the store layout. If you are thinking of an e-commerce site, it's the UI of the web page that you are in. Then of course offers, we all love to get things at the best price, new launches. And the product placement, again, is it easy for me to really access the product, whether in the store or the so it's all about picking and searching during that visit. These are those elements that retailer can then understand through data. Coming to the buy part of it, payment, is it easy for me to make the payment? Do I have all the possible options that I would want to, or it's restricted to only 1 or 2 modes? How is my checkout lane experience? Is there a self checkout? So as a customer, I'm thinking that, and as a retailer, these are the 2 elements that our clients will work towards to make that experience personalized and easy to remember. Because when we get to the reflect stage, all these elements will come as an assessment, which will then decide whether this customers come back or not, and eventually building the loyalty and advocacy. So that's all about how the retail customers are looking like, and this all gets summed up to the 7 levers that a retailer can pull to influence the perception that a customer is having throughout the end-to-end journey that they have with that single transaction. So getting the prices right, getting the variety right, getting the promotions right to the product mix, what is the space that this category should get to a store, which customers should I target to when I'm looking at my data, and which are the customers that I would want to win back, which are the customers I want to acquire. So this is all the retailer's problem statement look like. So if I just take you back to the value chain of analytics that I talked about so far, this is the defining of problem statement for a retailer, and through both the lenses that we can really look at. Now, as we are talking about data analytics, right? So now we need to understand how we really start influencing this, and it all starts with data. For a retailer, data is the transactions that we all are making. And if I speak from an analyst perspective, that's a huge data that we are talking about. Let me just give you a quick glimpse of what data that you see and versus how data that as a customer you see and how that goes back to retailer. So there are 3 customer receipts that you can see here. I'm not sure how much of that's visible, but I'll walk you through that. So the first one, there's a lot of fresh items that are coming. That's a one huge big bill, and lots of paneer, green peas, and a lot of winter vegetables that you see through. So there is an, even if we don't look at lot of the information for this customer, we can say there is definitely a healthy inclination that happens. There's a huge amount that's coming in. So definitely it's not just for one person. So we are talking about the size of the household here as well. Not getting into the price, but that's another information that can be looked down, and maybe the another will help us understand that better. So this is another example where we don't see fresh, but we do see products which help us make food. So definitely a person who's preferring a homemade food, and looking for best deals. So we see 400, close to 400 rupees being saved. We do understand a little bit of price sensitivity angle coming here as well. The third element, there are coming from same customer of 3 different time snobs. So, and you can see they're really small and simple items being there, not much in number. So this is like a quick trip that's happening. The products that are there are more ready to eat. Most of them are more ready to eat. So definitely somebody who's trying to prefer a quick gratification when it comes to food rather than getting into much of cooking. So even if you just look at these simple receipts, there's a lot that I'm talking about, and I'm sure there's a lot that's coming on your mind as well. Now imagine that all such information for any given retailer, if I'm able to get all the transactions of all the customers, how much of intensity data that we are talking about, and that is the kind of big data that we are dealing in retail world. Millions and millions transactions being analyzed to understand the customers, and this can't be done without any algorithm. So when I'm looking at 3 customers and looking at few receipts, maybe I can still talk about few things, but it's not an eyeball exercise that we get into. So algorithms are the supporters, are enablers that really help us bring things in action to whatever pieces that I have talked for now. What we did just a minute ago while looking at the receipts was trying to understand the customers. And one important aspect to understand the customer, or philosophy that we follow in dunnhumby, is you are what you buy. Looking at your baskets, there's a lot that can be understand. Every customer can be segmented into different ways in terms of how they are interacting, what they are picking up, how much quantity they are picking up, at what price point they are picking up. And this gives a new vocabulary to customer, not just in understanding, making it to a strategy level, but this forms an important basis for us to build our algorithms when we are trying to target the customer. So one, it is a foundation for us to talk to our clients, and second, it's a foundation for us to get engaged customers for our clients. So that's a very simple example of how and any algorithm can help us solve an example. And if I get into the algorithms, what I'm referring to is clustering in that particular example. We are trying to group sets together. We are trying to group people together. As I said, I'm trying to understand who are my customers, how do they really shop, how valuable they are, how much really they're spending with me. So clustering is something that will just if I know this is blue and this is black, I'll be able to put it in the right bucket. But to identify what is blue and what is black and getting that label to it is an algorithm that's needed. So be it k-means, be it GMM, be it hierarchical, any kind of clustering can help us bring that information together. So that's a one simple example that you see in retail sector. Another dimensional redictionality, again, this is something that's more of a feature engineering that we look at, but if it can help us answer a question, why not? It's an algorithm at the end. So and look at this way, you have a huge data, and at the end this algorithm is trying to just reduce those dimension and give you some meaningful combination. So if I'm trying to understand what a customer's mindset is while they are coming to shopping, and they're trying to understand what I'm dealing with, what I really need to pick, looking at that whole data and applying this algorithm can help us through that. Optimization, that's a big one. If at the end optimization is getting the best result, whether it's about the right price or whether it's about the right space that the category should get from store. So there are different models and algorithms that working behind this whole section of optimization. Regression is the most common one. As you start learning, start talking about machine learning, the first thing that you will discover is regression. It's about understanding the relationship between two variables. In retail side, if I look at the questions like what is really driving my sales, are the kind of questions that can be answered through regression. Classification, it's little bit aligned with clustering, but now we have labeled objects. Now I can understand them and I can try to get more information through them by training my data and get the information for the ones that I don't have information for. It could be which customers should I target, which customers do I see are at the risk of leaving, and which are the customers that I should be really acquiring. Last but not the least, forecasting. It's the most simple predictive analytics that we can talk about. Looking at the historical data and running different algorithms, be it exponential smoothing or any simple mean average. We're trying to look at what future has it for us, and what questions like what will be my sales in next quarter have been answered for our clients. So that's a very quick brief of algorithms. And forecasting is something that came handy for us when we were trying to help our retailers in the ambiguous time of COVID. So I'll just quickly talk about a project that happened for one of our clients during the lockdown time, the first lockdown of COVID era. Now, this is, and I'll just talk about how we all were in an ambiguous state. It was not just for us; it was also for the retailers. For us, we were seeing availability as a problem. For retailer, it was really through the stocking of and managing their inventory accordingly. So they also wanted to get as much information as they can. So one of our clients, they really started just drawing their forecasting and doing those strategical discussions where data science really came handy to help them. The question was, we want to predict future sales due to the uncertainty of what we are seeing in the time period. And the end result was we were able to give them that with the high accuracy. I'll take you back to the value chain that I just started with. We talked about defining the problem. So here, the problem was there is an ambiguity that's going on, especially driven by COVID. There's a lot of macroeconomic influence that's happening, which is beyond customer information and has to be considered through outside the transaction information. Data munging, this is something for us in dunnhumby is something's being taken care of, but when it comes to external data, it requires transforming and reading that information. So this whole exercise required us to pull information beyond the current data and gathering more data to make sure that we are making the right use of, and we are really getting to the right answer to the question that we got. So munging that data, getting it to the form that we can analyze. Data analysis is the stage where we started talking about the model. Which model will look like, what kind of feature engineering do we need to get into, which algorithm of feature engineering will help us once we have the data in the right form, which is the right model to really get to the prediction. How do we assess the prediction is accurate enough? Are we going out of sample? Are we going out of time? All those discussions, all those decisions were made in data analysis stage. Data visualization, you can see from the snapshots above, looking at the whole trend line, how really it goes, and we are really matching it up with the projections and the actual one when we are talking about it to the client. That's the last stage, storytelling, where we are really helping the client because they don't understand the time series. So it is important for us to really tell them that the data scientific way will really give you better results versus really just looking at the news and just trying to estimate numbers heuristically. Coming to the last stage, action, is this information help them take the strategical discussions that they were doing to plan their coming quarter. So that's the whole value chain connected to the whole retail world. I have rushed through a few things, but I'm more than happy to take questions. But before that, I'll just give you a quick future bites that I can think of when it comes to retail analytics. I've talked about big data. The explosion of data is really right now. We've been talking about data scientists job being and future of data science, future of big data, but it's not just future, it's happening in present, and future is something that needs to be kept in line. Almost every action is a data point. Even our oxygens are now monitored through smartwatches. So we all are living and breathing data. It's all about making that data talk. How can we use it to the right way is something that needs to be considered while we are looking from the future perspective. The technological growth, this is something that I resonate the most with. When I started my career in analytics, preparing data for analysis used to take about 2 weeks, which now happens in an hour, thanks to all the right tools that are available. And this is not going to stop here with just 2 hours. Things are getting real time. Everybody wants the answer right then and now, and they want to solve the problem as soon as, and solve the problem through getting the right direction through data as soon as they can. And even as a customer, if I think I would want my, even if my data is being used, that's something more of a legal question I'll not get into, but I would want the action to happen soon rather than waiting for 1 month or 2 months of my one of my shopping pattern to get the recommendation of what goes best with my outfit. I'm sure everybody would love that. The last but not the least, market dynamics. Post-pandemic, everybody opened up to a very difficult economic condition. So inflationary pressure is not just something that you hear in news or is something that's just impacting the dynamics of the economy, but is something that is affecting our decisions as a customer every now and then. So speaking from retail analytics experience, this is the influence that's being studied, and this needs to be studied further to make the right use of the information. That's all from my side, and I think I can take questions now.
Participants, do we have any questions? You can put the questions in the chat as well.
Or maybe if there's something that you want me to reiterate, I just wanted to make sure I'm on time. So I'm more than happy to talk more about any particular piece.
Sure. So one thing which you can take across, there are participants and students from ages as well. So any specific, what are the challenges that you face when you're working on such large data or when it comes to retail industry? So what are the challenges that you face? And if you can take up any specific use case, what were the challenges? How did you overcome those challenges? If anything you can talk about that.
I think I'll stick to the same example that I just talked about, because the biggest challenge was the fact that we wanted answers now, not just as a retailer, as even as even just as a person who is in a such an uncertain time where we don't know when we are going back to our normal lives. Everything was just here and there. The data was all messed up, right? If I want to look at the whole 2 years of data, the April 2020, March 2020 will always give me some weird results. We all read about US buying toilet paper and toilet paper going out of stock right now. Imagine if we are trying to understand that category, the data is not as expected. We need to keep all those elements in mind. So I think the biggest challenge at times is infrastructure. But if I stick to this, an infrastructure coming from where we are trying to gather more information to what we have right now to our access, exploring new data sources to make sure that when we are trying to answer that problem statement that we have defined, we are covering most of the elements, are really able to give the complete answer rather than just based on the information. So it's about breaking that uncertainty and what all needs to be included, what all can be factored in. So that's about the challenge and overcoming, and of course requires a lot of research work. When we started working on this project, coming down to the variables that we would need, we wanted to make sure that the COVID trend is also part of the data exercise that we are doing. So whether we get into the number of COVID cases of each city, what level do we get into, how do we really source the most accurate information? So these were the questions that kept on hovering, and of course there's always time pressure. So that would be my quick answer using my last example.
Thank you for that. So we have a question from Karti. Karti says, ma'am, can you tell us about how recommendation system help you in retail industry?
Yeah, so I've deliberately not got into media because that's a whole session in itself, but I can give you a quick brief element of we all see recommendation system working as soon as we open Amazon. Just go and buy, look for anything. That's retail, right? That's e-commerce retail for you. So that's a recommendation system working at the back to whenever you're trying to buy a laptop, it will come and prompt you that maybe you want a laptop bag as well along with it. So that's an e-commerce. When I just look at the whole spectrum of retail, it's about really giving the right recommendation of which product goes with, not just on e-commerce side, but also how should I really package and really put them on promotion so that really I can cannibalize without cannibalizing any information. I can get into more sales. So recommendation system will be mostly of media and it requires discussion in length. So that's a brief answer that I can give you right now.
Thank you for that. We have another question from Jeet. He says, when you have uncertain variables like that in COVID, how do you incorporate such uncertainty in your future forecast?
So the uncertainty was about how things will move in future. So of course there was noise that needs to be tackled, and that's where the conversation of picking up the right model and which model is really using the data in the right way. I think it's the variables were not uncertain. That was an exercise that needed to happen, but it was the uncertainty that we were trying to tackle through COVID variables information that is available on the public domain.
I think that has answered your question, Jeet. So again, I have another question to add. So a lot of the real world data that we deal with is not balanced data, right? Because when it comes to recommendations or whenever you're applying the machine learning algorithms, so what ways do you handle those data? Like, how do you handle those data?
Sorry, your voice broke a little. Can you just
yeah.
say that?
Am I audible to you clearly now?
Yeah, better.
Yeah, all right. So I said the data we're dealing in the real world is more of an unbalanced data, that's the problem because when it comes to balanced data, you have simple measures like accuracy, you can straight away go with that. But majority, be it any domain, the data is imbalanced. So specifically in retail, what measures, do you put the business problem at the top sometimes, or is it the evaluation matrix that you're looking at, So what, or is there a, trade-off between those two? So what exactly, how does it work?
I think I'll go with business problem statement here. So in cases where I'm actually trying to get to the, if I pick up the classification as a model, I need to predict with what's happening with this customer. So such problem statements, working with unbalanced data won't help me. I'll have to find ways. How do I really bring that balance? How do I, because I would want my classification to really work in the right way. But when the problem statement is not as precise as that, is something that can be worked, can we manage it in a different way? Is there a different data source that we are trying to look at? Is it something that we can, that's where the feature engineering also comes in, right? Can I help my whole data preparation be in a way that I might, and again, I think that also connects to the problem statement, but definitely it's really how I'm phrasing and what exactly I'm trying to achieve through that.
That's definitely, it will definitely differ from the business to business firm.
Yes.
So we have another question from Pranav. If you want to take this, you can take this, or even I can take this question. What's the right tech stack for the beginners in the analytics world? So first, I would like you to say, and then definitely I would like to add on to this.
Yes, I think I'll actually go back to the value chain that I talked about. So I'll start with data analysis only. I won't talk about the first two steps. So getting to the right data preparation, which is to know your coding. So whether it's Python, SQL, and getting to understanding the data so that you can really make those logical sense about what exactly is needed through that. Then another important tech that needs to be added is visualization, whether you want to go for Power BI, whether you want to Tableau. Throughout, I have my favorite as Excel, to be very honest, because I think it really helps in both the side, but that's an outdated preference that I'm talking about. I'm to learn through, I would really vote for Power BI and Python to start with, and then try to find what fascinates you more and go in that direction. Nida, please add.
Yeah, thank you, Aditi, for that. So Pranav, Aditi has already covered all of it majorly. One thing, so when anything that any work that you begin with you would be working with the data first, understanding the data. So also along with a programming language, Python, or you need to understand how to connect with the database. For that, you will have SQL. Also, you need to understand the data, how the data is standing out. So you also need to understand statistics, because a majority of these algorithms that you would be studying. So these apart from these three, then you would go to machine learning. Now, when you're talking about machine learning, it's majorly dealing with the numerical data. To understand the machine learning algorithms, you will have to understand what the statistics or the math behind that. Without that, you won't be able to understand how these algorithms are working. And moving further, if you're going to further understand the textual data, you will have to understand natural language processing. And if you're dealing with the image data, you'll have to work with more of deep learning mechanisms. So, and again, when you're working with lots of data, you have to understand big data, Hadoop, so these things. So, that's the entire tech stack that you really need to understand. But, to start from, you need to have a programming language, SQL, stats, and machine learning. So we have another question from Akshay. 12 years with dunnhumby, from economics to data science, same company. Tell us about your journey.
I hope I have enough time to answer that question. I'll try to make it quick. Definitely a fascinating one, a wonderful one. And you've pointed it really right. Coming from a non-technical background, it was really a steep curve that I had in front of me. So when I started my career, it was SAS that we were dealing with. And trust me, guys, Python is way easier than that, especially when you don't have any computer background. So it was definitely sometimes I won't deny that I was not demotivated or where have I really stuck myself, but every challenge really comes as an opportunity. So I really started enjoying solving those challenges. And I thought maybe after this I'll see where I am. But and this happened as a step. So I got comfortable with SaaS. dunnhumby has seen a huge technology evolution through the 12 years. So everybody, even the question says same company, but it really never feels like that. The company is evolving, and so are the retailer problems. So I think there's a lot of new challenges that are keeping me engaged that way. And moving towards technology, connecting it to the retailer problem, I've realized about myself that I enjoy solving problems. So that's my nutshell journey, what kept me moving through this path.
That's really inspiring, and I think it's a perfect inspiration to those who are especially from the non-technical background. For them, it's always coding, Python. They really get scared to get into that, but you are a live example of when you really want to do something, and when you are up for the challenge, definitely you can really achieve what you wish to. So we have another question from Karthi. What are the ethical considerations should be taken into account when implementations in retail?
That's a good question. I think the first is definitely the legality of customer data, which I briefly mentioned during the presentation. Not every customer would want their data to be really understood. The privacy element really plays an important role. So that's the topmost for any kind of problem or any retailer or any information that way, because it's a personal information that we are talking about. We are trying to understand a person through that. So that consent needs to definitely be there. GDPR is the best example for it. That's happening around the globe, and I'm sure in India we are yet to face that more closely, but working with a global company, that's being taken very seriously when we are working along the data that we have. Second would be about again connecting it to the legality of how we are using that data. So one, getting the consent. Second, to what extent can we really use the data in a way that kind of coupons that we have. I'm just going digressing a little towards media. Do I want one? I'm happy that my data is being used to one few phases, but first is I don't want my data to be used for really sending coupons back my home. I don't want somebody to know that I'm shopping back in the store, right? So as simple as that. So I think everything will at the end will go to legality. Just speaking from an organization where I'm coming from, where we are working across different retailers, it's also the confidentiality. So there are a lot of things that I wanted to talk about in the presentation, but there's a lot of IP involved. One, second, a lot of retailer data involved. Not just for this presentation, when we are talking across different clients, there's a limited information that we have to share. So that's another ethical element that I see coming in my job role when we talk about that.
I hope she's answered the question, Kathy. Participants, do we have any more questions? I think it's a very interesting domain to understand, and so we have another question from Piyush. Are there any tips on dealing with non-technical stakeholders? How do you strike a balance between using the best available algorithm and explainability?
That's definitely a difficult balance to bring about. And I was talking about the storytelling part. One, talking to a data science school, talking about clustering versus talking about clustering to a person who has no idea about what data means are very different. So I think the first thing that I look at is simplifying it as much as I can. So if and I'll be honest, when I started creating content for this presentation, that the same balance was something that was hovering around me. I wanted to be simple, but I didn't want it to be too simple. So that I think how I do it. I try to break it into bullets, and I try to further break them into what kind of questions can be really asked, and simplify them and start connecting those and start grouping them. There's a clustering that keeps on happening in my mind of messaging which needs to go, and that's where the storyboarding is important, because we need to really connect to the retailer or the client when we are talking about our ideas. So whenever we are explaining any technical concept, it's about how much I can really simplify for my audience and understanding the shoes that they are in. So it's a session in itself that I can really go about.
I know that's one point where you can really, there would always be like, how much to tell, what to tell,
Yeah.
what's the best way to explain. That's where your visualization tools, I guess, are helping
Yes,
to,
definitely.
to talk in numbers, directly
Definitely.
plot and show the numbers. Very, very well answered. And the participants, do we have any more questions? I think you've taken you've taken us in depth, about the retail and understanding each and every aspect, and how we've also covered, how a non-technical person, any person who would really want to get into retail. So, coming to retail, so what are the skills that you generally look at for people who would want to get into retail and data science, work in the data science for retail?
I think I'll stick to data science. I'm not a retail expert. I'm a data science expert, so I'll answer that part of the question. Definitely, logical thinking comes out to me as the first thing when I am on the recruitment side. So till the time I'm able to understand the problem, logically break it. I can find algorithms on Google, right? I can learn about them, but it's about really demystifying the challenge, the problem that we are facing. So now we have ChatGPT to help us as well. So I think it's about getting the right thought process out there.
Very well said, and rightly said. With all the assisting tools for us, the key skills that how to formulate the problem statement, how to go about that, and then proceeding further from there onwards. As you've already taken us through the entire cycle of how you break down the problem statement. Participants, any more questions? Okay, I don't see any more questions coming. I think we had a good set of questions there. And I really appreciate your effort. Thank you, Aditi, for coming and taking out time and sharing your expertise, on behalf of Aegis School of Data Science. I would really thank you for, explaining us how data science is actually used in the retail industry. And I hope we have another session, maybe another time, in-depth session with you. So thank you. Really appreciate your efforts. Thank you so
Thank you for
much.
having me.
Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you, participants, for attending. And, if you have any, it was definitely a wonderful session. I'm also getting comments from the participants that it's been a wonderful session. Thank you once again, Aditi. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.